crowd today. Here at Terry Third Thursday, we strive to bring compelling speakers to the audience. We bring them from various corners of the business and public service worlds. I'm proud of the list of speakers that we've had over the years. You can go to the Terry Third Thursday website to look at the list of past speakers. It goes all the way back to 2000, I believe. You actually can click and watch aren't the talks still archived? So there are many good ones, so I would urge people to do that. Many great stories have been told and lessons learned from the leaders that have been here before us. Today's speaker has the ability to draw people out of the woodwork, so I want to take this opportunity, with the room as full as it is, to plug Terry Third Thursday as I'm doing. I would urge people to come on out, the people who are not frequent attendees, and look at the speakers as Marty went over, and try to make it a habit to get down here and join us more often. I'm especially excited to have Damon Evans speak to us today. Damon has been so busy in the nearly 4 years that he's been athletic director at UGA that this is the first time we've had him speak here at Terry Third Thursday in Atlanta. I believe he spoke in Athens once before. But what better time to have him than now? If you look at the program, it's unbelievable. The caliber across the board. I lettered in golf, and men's golf is perennially at the top. Right now we're ranked #1 in one of the polls. Men's tennis is fantastic. Women's golf, gymnastics, we know the success gymnastics has had. Equestrian, swimming, baseball's top 10 now. Football, of course, is now top 5. And I'm sure I'm probably forgetting some, so Damon can go through them all. But we take great pride in the continued success of these programs. The topic today is athletics, but I will say that Damon's job involves running a very large business, so we're looking forward to getting some insight about the business of UGA athletics today. Just a little bit of background on Damon. I think most people know a lot of these things, but I'll just go over them real quick. When named AD in 2004, he was the youngest athletic director in the SEC and one of the youngest in the entire country. In the same year, he was appropriately named the Terry College's Outstanding Young Alumni Award winner. Damon earned a finance degree from Terry in 1992 and a master's in sports management in 1994. He lettered for 4 years in football as an undergraduate, and among his volunteer commitments, he is a member of the Terry Alumni Board. His professional career has taken him to the University of Missouri, where he worked in NCAA compliance, the Commissioner's Office of the SEC, the Southeastern Conference, and last month he was named for the 3rd time to the Sports Business Journal's 40 Under 40 list, recognizing him as one of the country's top sports executives under the age of 40. And the most stunning thing of all is that he is under 40 still. So before he gets any older, please join me in welcoming Damon Evans.
Thanks for those kind comments, Louis. I am getting older, and I have to share this. In the business world, everyone says how young I am. And I try to stay young each and every day, and I get up each morning and I work out, and I'm in there with all of our student athletes. And one of our student athletes is standing in there, and happened to be a basketball player. And he said, "Mr. Evans, you sure look good for an old man. How old are you?" I said, 38. He said, "You're getting on up there." So I'm not as young as I used to be, especially when you're in an environment where everyone stays the same age, between 17 and 21. So I get older, they stay the same age. Compelling speakers that you bring here, you weren't talking about me, so I'm sure you've had a lot of them. I'm honored to be here. I really, really am. And before I begin, I want to take some time to introduce some people who are extremely important to me, who are good friends, work with me. First and foremost, I want to introduce Dave Muai. Many of you may know Dave. He's been around the university for about 60 or 70 years. He doesn't look it, but believe me, he has a lot of experience. He was the former executive director of the Alumni Association and now serves as a special assistant to me, so I wanted to acknowledge him. I also want to acknowledge Jay Lowe, who's come back. He's one of our major gifts officers. Where are you, Jay? He's in the back of the room. Watch out for Jay. He'll try to get in your pocket. He's a fundraiser for us, but he's a fine young man, and we're happy to have him. This next gentleman, if you don't know him, there's no doubt in my mind you do, because he'll make sure that you do know him. I call him my graduate assistant. He's the oldest graduate assistant on campus, and he got a pass because he's not enrolled in school. But his name is J. Don Edwards, and J. Don will do anything that we ask and always stands ready to assist us, and I wanted to acknowledge J. Don Edwards for being here as well. Marty, thanks to you and Terry for having me. Lewis, when you called, I'm glad we were able to work it out because I am so fond of the Terry College. I'm biased, you guys. I'm very, very biased. The best college on campus is Terry. There's no need to even debate it because it's opened the door to opportunity for me, opportunities that I might not otherwise would have had. In my business and what I do on a day-to-day basis, a lot of people are saying, geez, how did you come up with those financial strategies? How did you do this? Well, it wasn't rocket science. Terry taught me. In our business, you didn't have a lot of people who had a business background, and that's helped me immensely. I want to take some time to tell you it's great to be a Georgia Bulldog. I'm humbled to be in the position that I currently serve. I'm excited. I hope the university will keep me for several years to come because I truly believe we are at the best institution in the country, and we can still grow and develop and become even better than we are now. But it's going to take a collective effort of a lot of people. Lewis and I are going to have a little sidebar here. Lewis is going to give me a golf lesson today afterwards. I was listening to some of his accolades as a former letter winner at Georgia, of which I am as well. And you did the best thing. People usually get up here and lie about my playing experience. Did you know Lewis just said he was a four-year letterman? Because simply put, that's all I was. There wasn't much more to it than that. Some people will get up here and talk about, oh, he started for these number of years, he played in these bowl games, he did this. And I'm like, what bio are you reading? And Dave knows I say this all the time. It was different back then, you guys. I played a position that they no longer have. And the position was slow wide receiver. You don't get on the field today playing that position. So, Lewis, thanks so much, because I don't like to take credit for something I didn't do. But it was a great career. And Lewis mentioned all the things going on in the athletic program. I'll say this to you. Our athletic program is good because of the people. The people make us who we are. There's no one finer as a football coach than Mark Richt. He makes my job easier. He makes it easy for us as Georgia alums to support the program. Where we are in football right now is where we want to be. We want to be on the national forefront. We want people around the country talking about the University of Georgia. And believe me, they're talking about us right now. But it goes far beyond just football. We are a complete athletics program. We're good in everything that we do, and that's our goal. But not only are we good at it, we're good at it in the right way, doing it with integrity. If you look at gymnastics championships, and what a miracle, and I will say it, what happened in basketball over here in Atlanta, and really what makes it great, because I had to write my friend over at that trade school somewhere up the street, the athletic director a letter and said, boy, it was great to win in the Southeastern Conference Championship on the home court of our in-state rival. Now, I don't know if that may become one of our home courts now since we won over there, but what happened in basketball was simply amazing for us because it was a rough season. And to finish the way that we did, I feel that we're building some momentum. Gymnastics is winning more and more championships. Just captured another Southeastern Conference title, just had the highest score in the country, and heads into the Nationals ranked #1 in Athens. If you have time, please come over. Baseball, fantastic start under Dave Perno. Jack Bowerly is the head coach of the women's swimming and diving Olympic team. the Olympics over in Beijing, Chris Hack. The list goes on and on and on about our success in the athletic department. But what I wanted to do today is I wanted to take some time and tell you what I believe we are about, who we are, because I ponder it every day. What business are we really in? You know, some people say we're in the entertainment business. I think that's partly true. Some might say we're in the business of education. I definitely think that's true. If you want to know what I believe, we're an educational enterprise. We're an entity that is first and foremost about education, but we must and do operate like a business, only in different aspects from the businesses that you work in. Because I'll be quite candid, if you saw our balance sheet and saw some of the revenue that some sports bring in and the amount of money that they cost us, you'd ask me, why aren't you cutting them? We don't operate that way. But when I sit back and I think about us, I really focus on how do we brand ourselves? How do we want to be perceived across this country? How do we want people to notice who we are? I've often thought we are regional to a certain extent in the Athletic Association. People know us from a regional level. And let me explain to you what I mean. Notre Dame, Texas, Michigan, Ohio State. I give credit where credit is due. They're nationally known. We're just as good, if not better, than them. We've got to build our brand. Here at Terry, they've done an unbelievable job of branding. People know about the Terry College of Business, not only in the state of Georgia, but across the country. I've always told people in our department that I want people to recognize the G. I want people to know that it's Georgia and it's not Green Bay. I don't want to get on an airplane and someone ask me when I have my G pin on, is that Grambling? No disrespect. Grambling, Georgia, come on. But we've got to get that out there. We've got to get people, the first thought is Georgia. Georgia has got to be on their mind. Now, I think about how do we do that? How do we go about getting people to understand who we are and what we're about? And I'm going to tell you who I think we are and what we're about. But we've got to get out there and spread the word. One of the best ways we can do that might sound crazy to you. It's simple. What's the most visible, for lack of a better word, product that we have on our campus? Any takers? Football. We have got to get out of the Southeast. We have got to get across the country and let people see who we are. We've got to be willing to go out to the West Coast, Arizona State. We've got to be willing to go see UCLA or Southern Cal or Texas or Notre Dame, because that will let people see what we are about. And that message across the country will spread. I'm excited about some of the things that we're doing in that area. We'll continue to build upon that. The red and black is strong, but I really want Georgia to be on people's minds, more than just the Georgia people. I want to convince other people around the country to jump on our bandwagon. We are an educational enterprise, but the thing that's going on in the business of intercollegiate athletics right now is there's a big paradigm shift. Because there are two models, simply, in my humble opinion. There's the student-athlete development, or the educational model, and then there's the big business entertainment. Let me start with big business entertainment. We'll bring in, as an athletic association, roughly around $80 million this year. That's pretty significant for an athletic association budget. We'll have decent profits. We've been recognized as the most profitable in the country at various times. We have over 550 student athletes. We have 21 sports programs. We run just like any other business runs. We provide entertainment to individuals, whether it's football games or basketball games or what have you. But as I said earlier, one of the differences that we are in an environment of higher ed. We are a not-for-profit. Really, the fundamental purpose of what we do is to promote higher education. Now, a lot of people are saying, higher education, is that what you're really about? Yes. At the end of the day, I look at athletics as a means to an education. Because for the majority of our student athletes, when they're done playing at the University of Georgia, they're done. They have to move on to something else. They have to get a career like all of us here. They have to get out and be prepared for the workforce. That's really what it's about. Now, don't get me wrong. Championships are great, and I want to win a lot of them. But I also understand that we're entrusted with the lives of young men and young women. Conversely, on that educational model side, is the country moving that way? Are we more about education or are we more about winning? Are we more about profits? Or are we more about helping people develop? That's where I see the shift. The shift has moved to the big business. You know, a lot of people want to say, oh, no, it hasn't. We are big business people. How do we maintain the balance between academics and athletics? What is the role of athletics within the context of higher education? A lot of people don't want to address that. How do we integrate academics into athletics? How do we become better graduation rate-wise? How do we do the things that we would want for our own kids? It's simple. It is really, really simple. Dave reminds me every day. He says, do for these young men and women the same that you would do for your kids. So it's not hard for me, you guys. At the end of the day, I'm going to stay the course, and we're going to stay the course that education is first and foremost at the University of Georgia, along with winning championships and representing this institution in the utmost manner. I will say this. I believe too many times we say you can have one or the other. You can be good athletically, or you can be good academically. The question I always pose is, why not and? Why can't you have good athletics and good academics? I truly believe we have that at the University of Georgia. I believe that we're headed in the right direction, because I tell people all the time, we want to be the best on both sides of the equation. I want to share with you 4 things, and then I'll shut up and take questions. I want to share with you 4 things that I look at, that we as an athletic association look at when we're measuring our program. They're simple. You can take a look at them and you can say, are they having success in the athletic association? Now, when I mention these, they're in no particular order, although if you know me, you'll know which one's most important. The first one is you can look at our graduation rates. Are we graduating the young men and women that come through our programs? I'll say this, not at the level that we want to. It is not indicative of where we should be as an athletic association. But I'll tell you this, we are busting our butts to get to where we should be. And I have no doubt that we will get there. It's simple. You can look at graduation rates. You can look at GPAs. You can look at test scores. Just like getting into the University of Georgia, the average SATs are 12-something, average GPAs are 3.8. Those are things that are easily measurable. Second, you could take a look at us from a compliance standpoint. And what that means to me, are we doing things within the rules and regulations of the SEC, the NCAA, and the university? Are we operating our programs with integrity? Are we getting put on probation? Which we have been. That's something that we can't afford to happen anymore. but it's easily measurable. It'll be right on the front page of the paper when we do something wrong. It's simple. Third, financially. How do we fare financially? Are we managing the money that our donors and supporters provide us in a fiscally prudent manner? It's simple. Are we doing those things? I think we are. I tend to think that in our business, there's a lot of, I don't want to say mismanagement of money, but wasteful spending, as I call it. And then finally, the last thing that I take a look at, and I think I said compliance, fiscal management, is simple. Are we winning? Are we winning? Take a look at the win-loss record. You can pick up the paper. If football's 11-1, things are pretty good. If basketball is 29-2, things are good. If baseball is rolling along, the numbers tell it. You could take those four things and you can say, that tells me a little bit about the Athletic Association and where we stand across the country. Those are things that we spread out amongst our staff because we want them to know these are important to us. But one sidebar is this. Extremely important to me. All that's great, but without people, without support, we couldn't be what we are today. Who is the University of Georgia? The University of Georgia is a collective group of people who are willing to go the extra mile to be the best they can be. The University of Georgia is a place where opportunities are created. The University of Georgia is a place where realities are formed. The University of Georgia is simply the best institution across this country. And now it's our job to get out there and let everybody know. One of my favorite songs is by Ray Charles, Georgia on My Mind. We've got to get Georgia on people's minds across this country so they know what all of us in this room know, that it sure is good to be a Bulldog. I'll end with that and open the floor to any questions that you may have. I've been given instructions that to use or go to the microphone if you should have questions. And I hope, Jay Don, that was 6 minutes, was I right on? Right on. All right. Any questions about anything going on in athletics? Yes, sir.
Hi, a couple of weeks ago we had Dennis Felton here to speak, and he shared some of his thoughts on discipline of the students and the student athletes. Can you share some of your thoughts about that?
The question was discipline regarding our student athletes and related to Coach Felton. Let me say something about Coach Felton. Tomorrow, he's supposed to be getting his mustache shaved off, which was his promise to the basketball team if they won the SEC championship. I think that's all right, but I think he should shave his head. I mean, if we really want to go out, let's shave the head a little bit, because I'd go down there and cut that head, but I'm not so sure I want to see that bald head, but I'd go cut it. Discipline, I'll say this, extremely important from all aspects, from how the student athletes represent us in the community to how the student athletes represent us on campus. The perception that people have of our student athletes is extremely important. For the most part, I think we've done a good job of disciplining our student athletes, but it's more than just about discipline. It's about being proactive and letting them know about some of the pitfalls that may be out there and trying to prevent things from happening. Academically, we've done some things with regard to a policy. I don't know if a lot of you are familiar with our academic policy that has required our student athletes to do what they're just supposed to do, to go to class, to be responsible, to be accountable. There's some things that we've had in various sports such as basketball, some run-ins. Those things are going to happen. How we manage those things is extremely important. And in this case this year, I thought Dennis Felton had to make some tough decisions. He made some very, very difficult decisions, and that let you know what he stood for. And that's what I want people to understand. While we want to win, we want to do it the right way. and we're willing to go above and beyond to do it the right way. I think there was one back there.
Damon, I guess piggybacking off that question, one thing I was thinking about is now that you've been here a couple of years, how you've, I guess, seen college athletics and college athletes change with the transparency of stuff like dog vent and scouts and rivals, dissecting a college senior and a high school freshman's lives up and where that's taken it and where it will take it.
Very, very good question. First of all, I'm going to say I've seen a change in student athletes, period. If Vince Dooley told me to run through that wall, I was going to run through the wall. If you tell a student athlete today to run through that wall, they're going to say, why? They're going to question you. They're going to try to tell you a better way to do it, which is mind-boggling, because I would have been scared to do that back in the day. But kids are different. Society is different today. The transparency is unbelievable with the internet, with the recruiting services. More specifically, the thing that scares me more so than anything are these things like Facebook, where they get on and they post what they do and they don't understand how that could come back and bite them in the you-know-what at some point in time. So I think within our business and within society in general, things are more open and more readily available, which makes all of our jobs a little bit more difficult. And that's why I go back and I have to say that we have to continue to inform our student athletes. You know, you think about stuff like that. We've had numerous meetings with the entire student athlete population about Facebook, about things on dog vent, and not to get caught up or put themselves in a precarious situation. Because again, we want them to be able to have future success and don't want anything to bite them in the butt. But it is how our society operates today, and we've got to adjust and just operate within it. Yes, sir.
I was just wondering, can you speak about the Hope Scholarship, and does that give us a competitive advantage in recruiting?
Hope Scholarship. If you ask Ron Polk, our former baseball coach, who's the baseball coach at Mississippi State, he will definitely say it does. If you ask the ADs in the Southeastern Conference in some meetings, some of them will say that it does. I'd say this. It's a great advantage from a standpoint that we can have more money to spread around to student athletes in our equivalency sports like baseball. If someone comes in and they're on the Hope Scholarship, then we don't have to give them as much scholarship money. So it is a good advantage. I always tell people who get mad about it, don't get mad at the Athletic Association. It's not our fault. We're just using what we have available to us. But it's a great advantage, and I'm glad we have it. Brittany?
Damon, when we're business people and we're talking about getting our employees to, buy into our vision, what are you doing to make the student athletes buy into your vision of increasing graduation rates and really wanting to get in the Rankin Center and improve their academics?
Great question about vision. One of the things that I try to do more so than any is to get around and to know our student athletes. I believe too many times in intercollegiate athletics, and I can just speak from my experiences, is that you have this man or this woman who's over these programs that don't interact with the student athletes, don't get to know the student athletes, don't keep their finger on the pulse of what's going on with the student population. That's what I've tried to do. The other thing that I'm able to do, fortunately, is I can relate, because I can tell them that I've been there before. I can tell them that I understand what it's like to go to practice, to go to study hall, to go compete. So when you sit down and you say, these are the things, I'll share what I did, it may not be right for you, but these are the opportunities that will be afforded you if you graduate from the University of Georgia. I always talk to our student athletes about the earning power of a degree. I have a friend who played with me at Georgia. He played in the NFL for 4 years, and he made good money. But he's real big in the numbers. He started adding it up and saying, you know what, Damon, you've made more money than I have. And that's the example of what a degree can do for you. So it's more about interaction. And I'll say this, I meet with every student athlete, that every incoming student athlete, freshman student athlete, I have a 5 to 10 minute meeting with them to go over my philosophy, to try to get an understanding of who they are. And then there are different times throughout the years where I'll pick a pool of student athletes to meet with as well. And now imagine this, there's about 100 student athletes that come in each year, and spending 10 minutes with each of them is a long time, but it's well worth it. Yes, sir. $80 million budget, how does it rank in the SEC? I think we're around 3 or 4 right now. The biggest budget in the Southeastern Conference, I think it's the University of, I can't say that F word, I'm sorry. I just can't do that, you guys, that'd be bad. But that school. Then I think the next largest budget would be Tennessee, and then I think we're right after that. The largest budgets in the country, you guys, in intercollegiate athletics are at Ohio State and Texas, $107 million. But let me put this in perspective, and you guys all know this better than I do because it's not always comparing apples to apples. A year or so ago, we brought in, I think, last year, $74 million in revenue. It took us $54 million to operate. So for lack of a better word, net profit, 20 million. I've seen some of these other schools with $107 million budgets or $90 million budgets, and it takes them almost $90 million or $107 million to operate. Same number of sports programs, same number of student athletes. Look at the success across the board, pretty much similar. And I'm not saying that in a way to knock those institutions because they may have some things, like I say, apples to apples and so forth. But what I'm proud of is we may not be the largest, but I think we're one of the most financially responsible. Yes, Gerald.
Damon, what are some of the new facilities that you have on the drawing board?
Some of the new facilities on the drawing boards for our student athletes, it is an arms race out there. I've always said, are we going to ever stop building? But I doubt it. I think we'll be building, and then when I'm gone, they'll continue to build and build. Right now, we're undertaking a master plan, looking at our total athletic complex to say, what do we need to do? How do we need to prioritize things? Because I want to make sure that we're set up for the future. But things that are on the drawing board, probably of priority right now, is football. We're looking at some things with regard to expansion of the Butts-Mehre building, studying some things there with regard to weight room, training room expansion, some other things in that particular area, coaches' offices. I believe that's a need for us at this time. That would probably be the next project that we do, but it's a fundraising effort project. We've got to get out and raise the funds for that facility. We're also looking at things with regard to baseball. Looking at some things with regard to tennis. And for those of you who are asking or thinking in your mind, indoor facility, yes, we're looking at an indoor facility at some point in time. It's interesting on indoor facility. That would be, I guess, a recruiting thing because I don't know if the weather is that bad here in the South, but everybody has them, and that's part of the business. But we will continue to provide the necessary resources for our teams to compete at the highest level. The master plan that we're looking at, it's a 10 to 15 year master plan, probably somewhere between $200 and $250 million to try to do all those projects. That's in today's dollars. So no telling what that'll be years from now. Yes, sir.
There seems to be more drinking in Athens than there used to be. I've been involved in discussions about this on Sunday night. I understand there are over 70 bars that are open in Athens until 3 o'clock in the morning. I just wonder what you do to try to keep your athletes out of trouble with alcohol.
First of all, education. We really try to educate our student athletes on the pitfalls related to alcohol. Also, there's a new policy on campus, which Dr. Adams put in, and I applaud him for it. It's a policy that upon your second alcohol-related offense, you are expelled from the institution. So that's significant. Whether it's underage drinking, if you get 2 underage drinking offenses, you're out of the institution. And aren't the majority of the kids at the institution underage? So it's a scary thing, and we try to tell our student athletes that. I always say the police can stand right outside the bars And when you come out, just do a breathalyzer to see where you are, to see if you've had any alcohol. The other thing, I'll say this, hadn't been in the bars down there, but this is interesting. I'll let out a little secret. We always like to say, keeping our pulse on what's going on. Some of our administrators have gone downtown late in the wee hours of the morning just to check out the scene, to see what our student athletes are doing. Because we think it's that important. And we have talked about it in our staff meeting. That really opened our eyes to a lot of things going on downtown, because most of us are probably in bed at that time. And when you don't know or you think you know, it's amazing to find out what's happening. So it's more about education. It's more about trying to see what's actually happening down there, and taking strong measures. Not only are measures taken by the university, but in our department, we have some pretty severe policies. If you violate things with regard to drugs and alcohol, it could end up that you're not going to be participating for us. Yes, sir.
Damon, in the annual report, it looks like that the revenues from tickets and from the Hartman Fund almost are about $50 million. Does Florida or Tennessee or even Texas or those other schools, do they have those bigger numbers?
The question was
from those two revenue sources.
The question was with regard to the Hartman Fund. Let me say this as far as football. I think it was a year or so ago, the largest revenue producers in football, I think we were second or third. I think Ohio State was first, and maybe we were second, and then Texas was third from revenue generated from football. At those other schools, they have good revenue streams coming in. I don't know exactly, but I can say this. Our ticket priority that we have is one of the best in the country as far as generating revenue. But again, I don't know how they set theirs up totally. But we brought in the numbers, they're open records, with ticket priority in the mid 20 million, and with the tickets at about 15 or so. Yeah, we're bringing in significant revenue, and that's attributable to you in this room and the people who support us, and the job that our football staff has done. It is the engine that drives us.
Damon, one of the many reasons you are successful is that you're a perfectionist. And as a perfectionist, there are certain things that you have to do that nobody else can do. When you became athletic director, it was highly publicized that you did your own lawn. You still have time to manicure that thing?
I have to be honest. No, I am a perfectionist to a certain extent, and I love grass. I'll just say I love the lawn, and it's funny when I get home every day and it's nice out. I'll take my wife and kids and I tell them, I say, let's go walk the back 40. That's just my terminology for it, because I like to see what's going on. Maybe a little bit too busy now, and I'll say my yard's a little bit bigger than it was before, but I will say this, though. I always tell the people who assist me with the lawn, I'm over them. I'm standing over them, telling them, we got to do this, we got to do this. These are the plants you got to put in. It's kind of relaxing for me. If many of you didn't know, I used to cut my own lawn, my grass, and that was a big thing. Not only did I cut it twice a week. How many people would get out there with a lawnmower? My wife says, you're crazy. What are you cutting the grass twice a week for? I said, well, you got to cut it a certain way to get it the way you want to look. So I do enjoy that. Yes, sir.
Thanks for the great job you're doing.
Thank you.
A couple of things you mentioned I completely agree with about branding and becoming more nationally known. I've lived in other parts of the country. I actually had dinner with you in Chicago, and we weren't that well known in Chicago. And the other piece on graduation rates, which I think I'd say just relates in general to the success in life of your student athletes. So on both of those points, branding and helping your students become more successful, is there anything that people in this room that are deeply involved in their business in both of those things that we could do to help you either individually or collectively with either of those?
Well, one thing that you probably could assist us with, there are a lot of things I could ask for, but I don't want to take all your time. We have started something just recently with our student athletes, is developing a career development program. in which we bring in alums to talk to our student athletes about life after college, about career opportunities that are available, about why education is so valuable. And I was talking to Rusty a little bit ago about it, and he gave me his card because I said, I'd like to bring you in. We had probably about 20 alums in this past, it was about 3 months ago, to talk to our student athletes. And one of the biggest proponents of this is Mark Richt. And we had a session, and this is how our football coach is. We had a 2-hour session. He sat there with the student athletes for the full 2 hours because he knows the importance of it. With regard to the branding, I think we have got to do a better job of just continuing to spread the word. I think there are about 250,000 living alumni around the country for Georgia compared to maybe Texas at 500,000, Michigan at 500,000. They're larger institutions than we are. But we've got to continue to spread the word. And for me, and I'll say this, you just said it, people in Chicago really don't know much about us. Well, have we done anything to get out to Chicago for people to know about us? I say about this institution as a whole, when I look at it, it's one of the best, and I hate to say this, the secret's getting out, which is good. But it's been a best kept secret, and I don't mean that negatively, for a long time. Think about this. A 3.7 or 3.8 average GPA for incoming freshmen, SAT scores in the 1200s, and I don't think people around the country, if you tell people that the University of Georgia is one of the top 20 public institutions in the country, I think they'll kind of be surprised. If you put North Carolina or someone up there, Virginia, people think that they're so far ahead of us. People, we're getting there. We have the same thing to offer. The question is, are we telling our story in the best possible way? We've got to figure out, in my humble opinion, think we're making great efforts, but figure out how to use our alumni, our alums, to tell our story. Marty, you tell me when we got to go, Marty. I can stay here all day. Yes, sir.
David, you mentioned a number of times about the academic level, incoming freshmen, how it's risen at the university. How has that impacted the student athlete? How has the academic level changed over the last several years for the student athlete and the difficulties or challenges you have in getting the students in?
That's a very, very good question. The thing that's interesting that's changed with intercollegiate athletics is that there used to be a certain cut score you had to make on the SAT. An 820 was, you had to have that. That was the minimum you had to have to get in. Then because of lawsuits within the NCAA saying that the cut score was unfair, the NCAA went to a sliding scale. You had to have a certain GPA with a certain test score. So if the SAT runs from 400 to 1600, there's a corresponding GPA with all the different scores in there. But what that's done is that you can now bring kids into institutions around the country. If you've got a 3.5 GPA, you might have a 700 SAT or a 650 SAT. Now, sometimes I wonder, how do you have a 3.5 GPA and only have a 650 SAT? How does that happen? And I understand there are kids who may not be the greatest test takers in the world, but I'm going to be candid here. It is a little bit more difficult because when you have an average SAT of 1200 and you have an average GPA of a 3.7 to a 3.8, and again, you all know that we bring in kids under requirements that are set by the NCAA that allow us to get them in here, but they come in here, not all of them, some of them come in here at a lower level, and they've got to compete in the classroom with individuals that have had higher GPAs or higher SAT scores. So what we have to do is utilize our academic support services and make sure that we set up plans to help those kids succeed academically. I'll say this to you. Every at-risk kid that we look at, we say at risk, what they have a little bit of a different SAT or GPA, is I look at and I'm sitting there saying, do we believe these individuals can make it here? And we've got to make some calculated judgments on whether or not to accept them. But it's more than just their academics. We look at their behavior and if there's anything in their background. But to answer your question, it's tough. It's tough, especially when, and I'll say this, we turned away some kids, you guys, that have been NCAA eligible, that are now playing for other institutions across the country. Some institutions that we compete against, and believe me, I hear it from our coaches all the time. So, yes, sir.
When you have a good day or a bad day, kind of taking friends and family out of it, who do you reach out to? Do you have a mentor? Do you have a fellow ADs? Who do you call? Maybe even just a good experience you want to share it with somebody.
It's outside of friends and family. I have a couple ADs in the business that are really good friends of mine. I'll tell you, one of them is a gentleman by the name of Joe Castiglione, who's the AD at Oklahoma. He's the first individual that gave me my first full-time job out at the University of Missouri when he was there. I bounce a lot of things off of him. But you know what I do a lot of times? A lot of times if things are difficult for me, I get away, and the way I get away is I go work out. I take my frustration out, or it allows me to clear my head to get out, run. And I'll run, and I'll run, and I'll run. You know, like Forrest Gump, he ran, and he ran, and he ran. And that's kind of therapeutic for me. But I do have a few mentors around the country, and I have some people outside the business that I talk to, people who are heads of companies that are in different, are in the private sector, do things different from me just to compare notes, because I try to take some of the things that are going on, whether it's corporate America or what have you, and apply them to what we're doing in the athletic association. So it's just a variety of people, and every now and then outside a family, I'll meet with my pastor, and I'll talk to him about certain things. I share a sidebar. I had a meeting scheduled with him last week, and I was caught up, and I was supposed to be there at 4 o'clock. It was 4:15. You talk about acting like a little kid. I jumped up, I ran out, and my secretary said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm late, I'm late." So, you know, I'll go to him along with some other people. So, anyone else? Yes, sir.
Damon, you mentioned about moving outside the southeast region with national branding, and mentioned the Arizona State game. This is a upcoming fall. Can you comment on future years, what's been needs, and also can you comment on what your wish list would be of future games outside the southeast region?
Now, my wish list for future games may be different than Mark Rick's wish list for future games. Mark's been really good on that. We always have to remember that we have to maintain some balance with regard to our football schedule, because we play in a pretty competitive conference. I want everyone to know this year we play Florida, Tennessee, LSU, Alabama, South Carolina, Auburn, and then let's don't throw out Vanderbilt and Kentucky, because they're coming along. We've got a very competitive schedule, and we mixed Arizona State in there this particular year at Arizona State. My wish list may be reported. I think we may have people here writing. My wish list, I'd like to see us play Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Nebraska, UCLA, Texas, Ohio State. Those are to name a few, because I just think, to me, it'd be nice to have Notre Dame in Sanford Stadium. It'd be nice to play at South Bend and beat them at South Bend. You know, it'd be nice to play Michigan. You know, I just think those things, those are nationally recognizable games. If you got a game, a Georgia and a Michigan on TV that weekend, I'm going to take a leap to say I think that would probably be the best game on television that week. The most difficult thing is this: trying to get the dates to fit and trying to get some of those institutions to play you. And I'll say this, I've been turned down by some of them. No, we're not coming down there to play you guys. We're not going to do that. And so we'll continue to work at it, because I think those types of games will help set us apart. But again, we've got to make sure that whenever we do that, we do it in the right manner. Time for one more? One more, Marty says. One more. Yes, sir.
How much did the association lobby to get Georgia to the Rose Bowl game last year? And how close did the
I guess I'm always candid and transparent. Talk to the Rose Bowl. Boy, were we excited. I can't remember how long it had been since Georgia had been to the Rose Bowl. I sat back, and I'll say this, and this is May sound crazy, I didn't even talk to the Sugar Bowl. I had, at that time, I had no conversations with the Sugar Bowl. Not because I didn't want to, but I thought the chances were so remote, and I know our relationship with the Sugar Bowl. All indications were that we were going to end up in the Orange Bowl, Fiesta Bowl, or Rose Bowl. I mean, up until that night where Pittsburgh beat West Virginia. Now, we had conversations with the Rose Bowl. I talked to them. I told them we were extremely excited. We'd sell tickets. We'd do this. Georgia fans would travel. But I also knew in the back of my mind that the Pac-10 has the Big Ten has a tie-in with the Rose Bowl. And if Illinois was sitting there, they weren't going to, Delaney, the commissioner of that league, was going to be adamant about them taking a team that they're supposed to protect. So when that team lost, when West Virginia lost to Pittsburgh, a lot of us in this room were probably thinking that we were going to go play for the national championship. And I'll say this, I thought we were one of the best teams, if not the best team at the end of the year. But I kind of felt it was going to go the way that it did. And I knew that night when Pittsburgh had beat West Virginia that we were going to end up in the Sugar Bowl. So it kind of just went back and forth. How close were we? I really can't say because I don't know what the Rose Bowl people were thinking, but they did say they had interest in us. And I would love to get to the Rose Bowl one day. But I'll end by saying this. I think the national championships at the Orange Bowl this year, that's where I want to get to. Thank you, God bless you, and go Dogs.
We want to thank Damon for being here with us this morning. You know, one of the things that I do in my position at Terry College is travel around talking with alums, primarily about giving money, but other things as well. And 4 years ago, when Damon was one of the final candidates for this position, I had a lot of people ask me, what do you think? And I said, I think Damon is a wonderful man, and the word that comes to mind when I think of Damon Evans is integrity. And he has proven beyond a shadow of a doubt over these 4 years that, yes, indeed, he is a man of integrity. And we are proud to have him as a part of the Bulldog Nation and as an alumnus of the Terry College. We want to thank you for being here today, and we have this sculpture that is created by a local artist, Paul Benzunas, to thank Damon for being here with us today. Thanks
Thank you so much.
much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.